This House is now in Standing Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, Head 91, Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment, in the sum of $62,364,283.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
Permission for my team to join me.
Permission granted. Honourable Minister, let me first remind honourable members of the process, and also I will advise your team after you have the opportunity to give the opening remarks, the overview of the ministry and what your mandate is. Minister, you have 10 minutes to give your overview, and this will be followed by the leader of the opposition, who is not here, not yet here, and then we come back to the team, your officers, before you answer any question that may be, well, not necessarily posed to you, but be posed to you through the minister. You would give your name and the job you hold within the ministry. That's for the very first time. Thereafter, so if you're speaking for the first time in the Parliament today, you will give your name and the job briefly, and then thereafter you would just proceed to speak. I will come back to honourable members once the questions, we get to the question session immediately after you or the leader of the opposition, so that we are absolutely clear. I will remind you of what the procedure is for honourable members in the House. Honourable Minister, you can proceed with your overview.
Thank you, Chair. Before I get into my remarks, I want to wish all of the females in the House and on Island a happy International Women's Day. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, sorry. I'm happy to be here this morning because I have a story to tell. I have a story to tell about what government is doing as it relates to our most precious social asset, our young people, our communities. Mr. Speaker, I want my day's presentation to be juxtaposed against 10 years that was missing. And I want that juxtaposition not to look at the 5 years that we were in government, but to look at the last or this current financial year and what this government did through my ministry to empower our young people on island. Because I have been hearing a number of noises in relation to aspects of my ministry, and I want to set the record straight. So like I said from the jump, I have a story to tell today. Mr. Speaker, for the financial year, and bear in mind again that I said I want everything that I'm saying this morning to match what happened in 10 years from 2008 to 2019. For this financial year, Chair, the ministry would have facilitated training across this country for 10,806 individuals. And I'm talking about this financial year alone. And if asked, I can provide the information in terms of the breakdown for those particular sections of the ministry that impacted on the lives of that social asset that I mentioned earlier. Chair, I am fully aware, and I will start here because I know that old adage about the elephant in the room. So I will start with sports. And bear in mind, like I said, every single thing I want you, Chair, to juxtapose. And I will share with you, because yes, there were projects that came from the Democratic Labour Party in 10 years that they were there. And I will share those projects with you. And again, Chair, compare the two. So from 2008 to 2018, under the Democratic Labour Party, these are the major sporting projects that took place. One, the David Thompson football competition. Two, the Silver Hill road tennis competition. Three, the David Thompson football competition. Four, the Silver Hill road tennis competition. Five, the David Thompson. Is there echo in the room, Chair, or am I repeating myself? For 10 years, those are the projects that came about from the Democratic Labour Party. This financial year, but like I said, let me speak to the elephant in the room. The National Stadium is something that all of us want to happen on island, because we're fully aware, we're cognizant of the impact of the National Stadium as it relates to sports on island. We are working every week with the Chinese to ensure that we can have the National Stadium up and running again. But persons will want you to believe that the National Stadium is in a state of disrepair, or currently the position it is in from the last 5 years. 10 years prior to that, the stadium was in a similar situation. And we are working to ensure that we have a national stadium in place. So when I hear Red Riding Hood talking in relation to $40 million that this government should account for, I want it made abundantly clear that the $40 million still resides in China. No $40 million was paid to any treasury here in Barbados to construct or reconstruct the National Stadium. So I want it made abundantly clear. Chair, we are ensuring that we have the best product at the National Stadium. We have planning permission was granted. However, it is a situation where we are looking to ensure that the National Stadium is built out in the fullest way. Currently, the designs that came from the Chinese side, and they're working with us, like I mentioned, is asking for 10,000 seats. We have made some adjustments because of the seating, and the seating is now reduced to 8,000. But one of the things we're looking for is to have a complete situation at the stadium. So we are looking on the northern side, I believe, if my orientation is correct, to have a stand that mirror what is currently existing now. Because this is not only going to provide additional seating, but it allows an opportunity for us to have, in basic language, a wind barrier to help with the timing of those athletes. We were offered a 200 track. We are saying we want 400 because we're trying to keep with the international standards in relation to if you put in that type of money into a track. So when persons believe that it is a case that government is stalling the process in terms of rolling out or having the stadium constructed, that is not the case. But like I said, I have a story to tell. So we are now looking at having the Chinese side price different areas that would be required to facilitate the second phase, let me call it the second phase of the National Stadium. As long as we have the pricing from the Chinese side in relation to that, then we should be ready to demolish the existing stands that we have and start the process of providing that stadium for our people. Now, last month, Chair, and like I said, I'm giving chapter and verse of what is happening within the ministry. Last month, Ronnie Wayward went to St. John and I insulted the people of St. John. Now, if I come to this honorable house and I said to you, there is no roundabout in the yard of Parliament, I'm telling lies. But not only did Mr. Wayward come to St. John and lie, but in the churchyard. In St. John churchyard, Mr. Wayward told the people of St. John that I constructed or I fenced Gore Hill playing field with...
Honourable member, no, you cannot speak the name.
I apologize for saying Mr. Wayward. Calm yourself. What I'm saying is, how can you come and say to people that a part of the Ministerial at Gore Hill, there's only one gate for persons to enter the facilities? And you're saying this, like I said, on holy ground in St. John churchyard to the people of St. John, when there are no less than 9 gates or 10 gates attached to Gore Hill and every other single location that we're putting up those ministerial. Chair, I will continue. He also referred, and I hope that during this session that it will come out, he also referred to the fact that nothing is being done for at-risk or unattached individuals, youngsters in this country. Chair, nothing can be farther from the truth, but I will get back there. I will get back there. 10,806, Chair, that is the number we're working with in relation to what happened on Island. Mr. Chair, let me speak a little bit about some of the programs that happened this financial year at the Ministry of Youth. We started a program called Moving On in conjunction with the Ministry of Education that seek to provide for those youngsters who did the 11+ exam, an opportunity to engage or to have some preparation work for when they transition in to secondary school. So money management, anger management, conflict resolutions, these were the type of things that were embedded in that particular program. Chair, we did the mentorship program where we saw 48 mentors matching with mentees to help those youngsters, if only to have a sounding board, someone to talk to in relation to their struggles. We have launched a community coaches program that is asking persons from within community to go back into those communities and to coach up youngsters so that we can have that groundswell at grassroots as it relates to sports on island. We have trained in excess of 20 groundsmen so that we can have a situation where those playing fields that we are tasked with preparing for cricket and other disciplines are fit for purpose. Chair, we have started or re-engaged the block committee. And I will speak at some point in time at length on that because the chairman, Marcus Stevens, is not here. And this is a program, when they talk about nothing being in place for those unattached youth, this is a program that is bearing fruits in terms of reaching out to all of the blocks across this country to provide a second chance, to provide training. Chair, let me couch this right. We have visited the prison at Dodds. I almost was going to say, but that is another group that should be in Dodds. We took a program to Dodds to reintegrate those individuals who we figure needed, again, a second chance when they exited the prison system. And we have provided a program in conjunction with the Barbados Community College to deal with that for those inmates at prison. It was oversubscribed. We have started a youth MC program through the PR section at the ministry to provide an opportunity not only because this is the year of the youth, but to provide an opportunity for those youngsters who have that capacity. And you would have seen it in our programs where some youngsters took charge of emceeing a number of our shows that we perform during the period. We have a pathway program that is providing youngsters an opportunity to acquire soft skills for the world of work. Chair, we have expanded several of our programs as it relates to training. The Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme, we're now looking to move that outside of the confines of this country. We're looking to make, yes, travel within the region. And again, we're working in partnership with the University of the West Indies through the continuing school to ensure that that particular program is in place. Chair, I have a story to tell today about the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment. So when you hear these atmospheric noises coming from the goodly gentleman that I mentioned, they told me not to call his name Mr. Wayward, and I will not call his name, Chair. But what I'm saying to you is that these are the programs, or some of the programs that are impacting the lives of that asset that I mentioned. And we will continue to do that. Every morning I go to work to do that, to make sure that we have a different path for the youngsters in this country, to provide opportunities that were non-existent for 10 years. And I'm saying again, and I'm asking those who are watching and asking you, Chair, to juxtapose, put my ministry in a juxtaposition with 10 years of youth work. I need to calm myself because I have a story to tell today. Thank you, Chair. I beg that Head 91 stand par.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. just let me remind honorable members of the House of the process today, as we've had for the number of heads we would have dealt with over the past week and a half. You are entitled to ask 3 questions of the minister. You have 3 minutes in which to do so. You are also allowed follow-up questions, but they must be connected. And if at any point in time I do not detect the connection to the follow-up questions, they shall be noted as a question. So I hope that is absolutely clear. You're entitled to 3 questions that you're allowed at. Your lead up to those questions should be no more than 3 minutes. And if you have follow-up questions which are connected, a follow-up question is simply a question that is under the same, on the same theme. A supplementary question. So, and if I detect at any point in time that that is not the case, the chair will rule and advise that that will be counted as one of your questions. I do not see the leader of the opposition, so let us proceed. Yes, thank you, thank you. Honourable Minister, you also have to introduce your staff.
Thank you, Chair. Because of this story that I have to tell.
I was interested in hearing the story, very much so. But yes, you have to introduce those persons who will assist you, who are part of the story, who would assist you in telling that story.
Thank you, Chair. I will start by introducing those who are sitting next to me and then ask the others so that you can hear their voice for the first time. To my right is PS Francina Jordan, and to my left, Director Hunt, and I will now ask the others who are sitting behind me to introduce themselves.
A very pleasant good morning to everyone. My name is Yolande Skeet. I'm the Acting Chief Community Development Officer, Community Development Department.
Good morning to all. My name is Andrea Titus, Principal Youth Development Officer.
Good morning, Honourable Chamber. Ryan Mosley, Acting Manager of the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme.
Good morning, Melissa Nurse Herbert, Acting Senior Program Officer with the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps.
Good morning, Neil Edwards, Barbados Youth Advanced Corps, graduate teacher.
Good morning, Stephen Roll, Sports Development Officer.
Good morning, everyone. Nicholas Matthias, Senior Superintendent of Works, National Sports Council.
Good morning, Emerson Bascom, Acting Director of Sports.
Good morning, Sabrina Wellwood, Acting Deputy Director of Sports, National Sports Council.
Honourable Member, thank you, Minister. Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Minister, it is absolutely and abundantly clear that you share a passion for the role that you are in, and you've made tremendous strides within the ministry for the people and for the youth of Barbados. I have 3 simple questions. The first has to do with the progress of the dormitory at Paragon. I'm aware that the Youth Advanced Corps has, I believe, has a contractor to be able to build out a dorm at Pargan. And after we got the permission organized, I've been tracking it, but I didn't hear much on it. And I'd ask, what progress have you made, where you are with
Honourable
the
member,
progress,
just pull the mic
where you
closer
are
to
with the progress
Thank
of
you.
the dorm at Pargan.
Thank you, Senior Minister. Yes, you're absolutely correct that we have made a whole set of progress in relation to the dorms at Pargan. It is an attempt for us to expand the program to have at least 1,000 trainees per year passing through the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps training program. As I speak to you, work would have started last week in terms of constructing those dorms. And the last report I got from Director Haynes is that sometime late June, early July, we should have a completed facility to house persons for the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps program.
Thank you. And you said that is 1,000 then per cohort?
Sorry, 1,000 over the year. We're looking at 250 persons per cohort.
And that is, so you're going to finish it in a few months, or is that of the following year?
Sorry?
You're going to finish it in this year?
Yes, we're going to finish it in this calendar year. We have gone out to, we're using a different type of building construction, one that is a lot faster than the block and mortar. So we're expecting, like I said, by June, July, that we should be ready to take in that first 250 persons in that cohort.
Okay. My second question has to do with the progress of the lighting program of the fields across Barbados. I know that was a very ambitious program, and if possible, I could join that with the bleachers as well. So what has been your progress with the lighting program for the fields across Barbados and the bleacher program?
Thank you for the question, Senior Minister. We are making tremendous progress in terms of the lighting program, but I will ask Mr. Nicholas Matthias and the team from the Sports Council to respond to you directly in relation to where we are with the lighting program.
Good morning again. We have completed up to this point 28 of the 37 fields earmarked in the lighting
Officer,
project.
before you proceed, you have to give you've given your name, but you also have to give your title, the job.
Good morning, apologies. Nicholas Matthias, Senior Superintendent of Works, National Sports Council. So to date, we finished 28 of those fields earmarked out of the 37. The last one that we are currently working on is the one at Garrison, which is on the actual center field of the Savannah. Of those that we have not finished, we are going to finish those as resources would allow. Part of the Ministerial project, which is the one for the bleachers, we would have completed 2 fields that were originally part of the lighting project, which is St. Catherine and but 2 fields we would have done outside of the lighting project that we would have finished in the Ministerial project. And the bleachers that you asked about for the Ministerial project, I'm happy to report that the first batch of them are here in Barbados. And once we get them cleared from port, we will start the installation of those post-haste immediately. And those will go out to the Ministerial that have already been completed up until that point, or are in progress to be completed at that point. Friendship, Briar Hall, Greens. So we are steadily working to get that project completed as well, in tandem with the current lighting project as well.
Thank you. And my third and final question has to do with pavilions / resource centers. one in the constituency of Christchurch West and one not in the constituency of Christchurch West. And this is my first constituency type question, come to think of it. And seeing I've heard others ask constituency questions, I'm going to have to use the opportunity to ask a constituency question. So, resource centres and pavilions. The one not in Christchurch West is the one at Sergeant's Village, which happens to be in the constituency of Christchurch East Central. I am aware that the resource centre has been closed for some time. However, the community, even although it's not in the constituency of Christchurch West, it's used by all three constituencies and is integral to our community development in Sergeant's Village. I'm also aware that I was told, or I heard, that there were actual plans to be able to renovate it, and they were in the ministry for some time. And I would ask if you are aware of those plans, and if not, could you elaborate as to whether you would have plans to renovate that community centre in Sergeant's Village. The other one is the one in St. Matthias, which I am aware that you have approved plans to be able to do a resource centre stroke pavilion together with a hard court and football, because it is adjacent to the Arthur Smith Primary. And often as I traverse that area, I see the children from Arthur Smith Primary using that field, but with no bathroom facilities. And if we can, and it hurts my heart to know that they have to go that far to get back to the school to use a bathroom, when if we had the resource centre stroke pavilion there, then the children would get an opportunity to use that. And I'm urging and imploring that we get both of those done for the benefit of the community in wider Christchurch as soon as possible. But could you please give me an indication of those two facilities?
Thank you, Senior Minister. Yes. That facility in your constituency, plans are in train to have that constructed in the new financial year. Look, one of the things that I have realized is that there's a need for our facilities to be open after the regular closing times. We have a program at community development that we call the center management committees, that we're doing a pilot to see how best we can have persons from within the community function on a voluntary basis to be at those community centers after hours to ensure that program and structured activities are available for those persons within the communities. I have also asked the National Sports Council to mimic those center management committees that are currently functioning at community development for all of our pavilions as well. Because in some cases where a community center is absent, as in my constituency right now, programs were done or are done at those pavilions. So your situation in relation to the project at your location is coming on stream. I can ask Sports Council to provide information. The second one that you mentioned at Sergeant Village, I believe my chief at CDD, Community Development, will have plans in place as well to ensure that that one is again on stream to facilitate training programs and persons within the community. So I will ask Sports Council Director. Now, let me say that the substantive director of the National Sports Council is off island on business, so he could not be here. But I will ask Deputy Director Bascom if he's familiar with the situation to provide some information. And after him, I will ask Mrs. Skeet from Community Development to share some information as it relates to the facility that you outlined at Sergeant's Village.
Good morning, Chair. I'm Mr. Bascom, Director of Sports Acting. I will ask Mr. Matthias to speak to St. Matthias.
Hi, good morning again, everybody. I have received the approved documents from PDD in relation to the community center/pavilion at St. Matthias. and we've been tasked with getting the quantity surveying work done. So I'm in the process of speaking with the quantity surveyor so we could get those bill of quantities and what's not out in prep for the start of possible construction as soon as possible. So we're currently in the process of getting the quantity surveying work done on that stage.
Yeah, I would ask you expedite. There's no other facility in that area, none at all. And the people of that area, not even just Grace Rest, St. Michael South as well, have had nothing for years. And I would ask that you please expedite on it. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Skeet?
Good morning, Chair. Yolande Skeet, Acting Chief Community Development Officer. In relation to the Sergeant's Village complex, that facility, when we had an examination done by the structural engineer, it was deemed unfit for use because there were a lot of structural damage. And indeed, we had some visits there. And when we sought then to see if we could have the site plans, we came up on one or two issues because the site plans were not available. So it means now we have to, and we've reached out to lands and surveyors so that they can provide us then with the plot plan. Because obviously when we had the visit, we realized that to reconstruct the center as it currently is, it would not be feasible, especially given the use which we perceive. But we had it in the estimates for, that would have been the last financial year, but because we did have the challenges, it was not placed in the estimate this financial year. But certainly, we can go back and we can revisit it and ensure then that, in quick time, we have all of the groundwork done so that we are able then to proceed. But certainly it is a lot of extensive work which is needed on that facility. It cannot be rebuilt as it currently exists.
So maybe you might not know, but I am the Minister for Infrastructure. And one thing I know how to do is to build buildings. And what you have there is a small facility on a rock outcropping. And what you need to do is to decide that you're going to take down the rock outcropping and then build a facility. And it's not a big facility. It's not a big facility. And I was of the impression that the actual plans were there. And Minister, I would urge you, because where that community center is well placed. It is well placed because it serves three communities. It serves the community of the Regency Park area. It serves the two sides of Sergeant's Village, three constituencies, and it also serves the wider area of Fords Road. And a lot of people have benefited over the years. There was even a church in there at one point in time. A lot of people have benefited over the years from having that facility. I am sorry that it is not in, and maybe we could get a move in, and I will speak to the Minister of Finance, because that facility is integral to that community. Even although the internal part of the building is not used, the community meets there every other Sunday, whether it's football or cricket, having they use parts of the bathroom. Obviously, they can't use the internal part. And that tells you how important the facility is. Because even although it is a condemned place, we are still having football and cricket, especially there on a Sunday. So I would urge you to look to see if you could implore the Minister of Finance, and I will as well, to get that as a move-in back into the estimates, because it is critical for three communities in the Christchurch area.
Thank you, Senior Minister. I'll be guided.
Mr. Chairman, I would yield back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for Christchurch West. The Leader of the Opposition has joined us after the opening, then the overview of the Honourable Minister, we are aware that immediately after he's allowed 10 minutes to give his comments or remarks, I'm now going to ask the Leader of the Opposition to so do.
I'm obliged to you, Mr. Chairman of Committees. Good morning to you. Good morning to all parliamentary colleagues. Good morning to all public servants who are with us. And I'm grateful for the extension of your courtesy in allowing me to do my presentation, only with the explanation that my duties here competed against professional duties elsewhere. And I'm happy that you allow me to do both this morning, sir. So thank you very much. When I arrived, I could have guessed that I would have heard exchanges as to Ministerial. And I want to say that government must not approach the problem of the youth or the problems of youth in this country as if Ministerial now represent the solution to that crisis that is occurring in the lives of that part of the population we call the youth. Let me begin by bringing a message from the Democratic Labour Party. It's a message of condolence to the Barbados Police Service and to the family of Station Sergeant Stephen Griffith, who passed unexpectedly and tragically. And the Democratic Labour Party, I know, joins in expressing their sorrow. I certainly do, and I know all of my parliamentary colleagues, including you, Your Honour, would join in expressing condolences to the Barbados Police Service and to the family of Station Sergeant Stephen Griffith. We come to today's debate on youth at a time of a different kind of death. The death of ambition, the death of aspiration among young people in this country. Your Honor, you are not unaware that we have, in Barbados, become aware of the unprecedented number of suicides among young people, and it is a social phenomenon, I beg your pardon, it's a social phenomenon that must not escape the attention of this country, and it must not escape the attention of the leaders of this country, and it certainly must not escape the attention of this ministry. Together with the tragic high incidence of suicide among young people is the tragic high incidence of emigration from Barbados. We are educating our young people. We are training our young people, our aspirational young people, up to the stage of tertiary education. Some of them going to jobs. Some of them, unfortunately, do not find jobs. And many of them now believe that their only hope exists in the verdant fields of Canada, particularly the whole of North America, England, and Europe, and even in some of the other countries of the Caribbean. And emigration, the flight of human capital, the brain drain, as we call it, is a crisis that is afflicting the lives of young people in this country. And we must ask the question, where is government's leadership in response to these crises that afflict the lives of young people? What has been government's participation in this age of suicidal death, in this age of
the tragic flight of human capital away from this country, this loss of confidence, this loss of hope in the country that we told them is theirs. What has been government's response? What has been government's participation? Those of my generation can claim that we came up in a Barbados in which we were reasonably well protected by our public institutions, by our institutions of authority, the government, the church, the school. All of our institutions of authority tended to raise us in an environment in which we were told that moral substance was good substance. I regret to say to you, Your Honor, that this country has lost its moral compass under the charge of this government. I regret to say to you, Your Honor, that this country seems to have lost its moral substance under the leadership of this government. I regret to say that. But since I've committed myself to telling the truth in here and elsewhere, I have to say that. And what has been government's response? In a time when even the church is treated as an irrelevant institution, what is this government's most popular or most frequent response to the problem of that crisis among the youth? And one of the strategies I've noticed in the government is that of placing its own popularity above principle. Principle and truth are often hard roads to walk and to travel, but somehow the government believes that there's some easy road to travel and that they must meet the problems of young people only with revelry, give them effect, make that the ultimate social activity of young people, give them effect, appease their anger, appease their discontent, appease their disaffection with all that is happening around them. Give them effect. And that attitude of government is contributing to the moral drift that we are experiencing in this country at many levels. And I accuse this government of being the sponsor of that moral drift that is afflicting national life in this country and certainly afflicting the lives of young people in this country. One philosopher describes it not only as a moral drift, but a spiritual blackout. The fete is short-term. The fete is temporal. It solves no long-term problem. How do we engage our people, our young people, morally? How do we fill their lives with substance? I could pause and respect the work that is intended to be done by any ministry that dedicates and devotes its time to uplifting the lives of young people. But in spite of the work that a ministry may intend so to do at higher levels in this country, we have people who really ought to know better ascending platforms of revelry and joining with those who say that they don't give a whatever. The word is not to be repeated in here nor elsewhere, but that is evidence of the lack of leadership of young people in this country. When those who ought to know better engage themselves in revelry, not only for the sake of their own popularity, but as a means of accompanying the descent, the moral descent, the spiritual blackout that now visits the lives of young people in this country. And the anatomy of power is that might is always right. That whatever a government does, a government believes that because it has power, that it is justified. Power does not justify wrongdoing. Power does not justify moral decadence. Power does not justify spiritual blackout that is afflicting the lives of young people of this country. We need a moral compass. This country needs a moral compass. Minister, let this not reflect upon the work that you nobly intend to do, but in higher places, right is not being done by the young people of this country. And it seems to me as if government is remaining oblivious to the plight, not only of tragic young suicide, but government in its intoxication with power is remaining oblivious. They haven't mentioned the flight of young human capital in droves to Canada. They haven't mentioned it. We have a responsibility in opposition to mention it and to remind this country that all is not well. There are some constitutions in the Western Hemisphere that speak of the ideal of freedom and democracy and justice. And in some constitutions, they speak about the pursuit of happiness. This is not a happy country. Objectively speaking, the young people in this country are not happy. And I'm wrapping up, sorry. See you drawing the microphone to your face.
You have 30 seconds.
30 seconds, and in that 30 seconds, I will ask this government to pay some serious attention to the plight of young people. And while it is becoming obsessed with ministerial, to pay equal attention and more attention to the maxi problem of a deep crisis in the lives of the young people of this country who are suffering from a lack of leadership which is morally adrift and has abandoned its moral compass. Your Honor, I'm obliged to you.
Thank you, Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Honourable Minister.
Chair, I have a story to tell. And I'm going to take this one myself because for 10 years, I worked in the Ministry of Youth under the Democratic Labour Party. During that period, for a small portion of time and just before 2008, I chaired a committee called the Block Committee that was seeking to get those unattached youngsters who reside, so to speak, on the blocks across this country back into mainstream society. In 2008, a couple months after the Democratic Labour Party came to power, the program was shut down. I heard the leader of the opposition speaking about the moral compass. There's a project within the ministry on the building linkages that embedded in that project was a youth hotline. The Democratic Labour Party said no to building linkages. But today, there is a youth hotline that is providing an opportunity for those persons who may be thinking of suicide, that they can call and have quality counseling because we have MOUs with a number of professional agencies that we can refer those youngsters to. The Honourable member mentioned the Ministerial. Go to St. Michael's School and ask them without the Ministerial today if they would have made thousands of dollars at Glow Sports that will allow them to help their athletes travel as a result only of the fact that the Ministerial at Briar Hall was at a level of completion that they can close all of the gates and take dollars at one particular point. So when the Honourable Member mentioned that this government is not doing what is right for our young people, I have a story to tell. We have a mentorship program, like I said, that is providing not only a sounding board, but an opportunity for persons within this country to look at some of the mentees that they're dealing with and change their lives. 95% or 99% of our programs, infused in those programs, are life skills. So we're not only providing vocational training, but there's a team at the ministry that will provide life skills to those individuals who are sourcing training from us on structured youth. And let me say to the Honourable Member, because you were there when my daughter, one of my daughters, was called to the bar, but she's now working in Tortola. Not because she can't get work in Barbados, but because she felt, Dad, I need this exposure, so I'm going abroad. So it does not necessarily mean or equate to people being frustrated on island, so hence they're looking for work overseas. My second daughter, who is a doctor, is now looking to go to England to practice, not because she cannot find work in Barbados, because she's working. But the skill sets would allow her to travel, so hence she's traveling to expand her capacity. But let me get back to the fact about this is the best time for any young people in Barbados to be living in Barbados because of the opportunities that are being provided by government, not only through my ministry, but several other ministries. I mentioned Project Oasis, but I will speak now to Project Dawn, a new initiative that is allowing our youngsters who are on the blocks to have a meaningful role to play on this island. And we have registered to date in excess of 17 businesses from the blocks directly in Barbados. At the National Sports Council, we have a situation where we are now asked to assist the Ministry of Education in keeping their playing fields at the schools clean. And we have contracted some of those youngsters who have registered business to go back and to assist with cleaning those schools across the island. About 400 or so individuals from the blocks are going to 3 institutions, SJPI, BCC, and Vocational Training Board. And note that these youngsters from off of the blocks are going to these institutions not because they have the requisite qualification like the mainstream youngsters with 4 or 5 to enter, but because of this project called Project Dawn. 3 officers, headed by Marcus Stephen, are going to, they will have visited more than 180 blocks to date on this island. I have a story to tell. And I am saying to you, Honourable Member, DAWN, Project Dawn, Project Dawn. And in short time, we're compiling some information that hopefully you will see about testimonies coming from these youngsters on the blocks in terms of how this particular initiative would have changed their lives. I'm talking about persons who exited the prison system. And I'm saying that this is a program that was started and should have continued for those 10 years, and they shut it down. Why? Why would you shut down a program that is looking to reintegrate youngsters who reside outside of mainstream society? Is it a lack of vision, Honourable Member? Tell me what it is. And we have seen, yesterday I saw about 20 young ladies coming into the building at Sky Mall. They're doing a hair braiding program under Project Dawn. What are we doing in the ministry? We are ensuring that all of those vocational training programs, all of the vocational training programs, whether they are by projects from the youth officers are now certified. So it is a case where, despite what you're saying, it is not true, Honorable Member. It is definitely not true. The ministry is ensuring that we capture every single one. There's a school leaving traces survey that speaks to those individuals who are exiting the school system in 5th form or 6th form to ascertain what it is you want to get involved in, what it is you want to do. How can government facilitate what it is that you're doing? I have asked every single department that provides training to move to satellite locations across this country to ensure that the net of training that we have is expanded. 10,806 individuals, you missed that, Honorable Member. Those are the ones that were trained this financial year. And I'm asking you that we're gonna come back on Tuesday. And I've asked the chair and I'm asking you to come back to this house and say in the 10 years that the Democratic Labour Party was responsible for young people in this country, 10 years, if they can match that 10,806 that happened this financial year, not the 5 years that we were here. I'm asking you to do that. And then I could understand if you have numbers to match, which I'm sure you probably will not. So when you look at what this government is doing, Ministerial is a small fraction of what we're doing to engage. I'm not sure if you heard the member from the National Sports Council in his response in terms of the lights that we're putting up across this country to facilitate training, to ensure that grassroots sports rise. And I would have mentioned the 6 projects from your Democratic Labour Party over 10 years, because I was in the ministry. The David Thompson, Silver Hill. Those 6 projects were happening on island for our young people. So I don't want, and like I said, you know, a lot of misinformation is going out, and I'm here today to correct that, because the story must be told, what the team that you see sitting behind me, what we're doing in the ministry to project and to provide an opportunity, and what we're doing to facilitate the needs and the aspirations of all young people on this island. And we're tasked with doing that for approximately 55,000 persons that fall into our catchment group from 9 to 29. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Thank you so kindly. Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Andrew, and for your kindness in allowing me to come before you. And, you know, not objecting
The
to it.
directions come from this Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Chairman, sir, for your kindness toward me, sir. Honourable Member, I have a couple questions. First of all, I want to thank you for the work your ministry is doing across Barbados in all the different areas that you now have responsibility. I have 3 questions, and my first question, as you would probably appreciate, is in relation to the Building Blocks program. Now, I am aware that the government of Barbados started a Building Blocks program so titled with a view to building the blocks, in a sense, allowing persons to complete the circle of enfranchisement of which we speak, so that ordinary persons who are considered to be block persons would be part of that process to be able to have their own businesses and so on and so forth, thereby converting these places to zones of economic activity, while at the same time reducing social unrest that in some instances may be associated with these blocks. I am wondering, though, Honourable Member, as I speak about mine in St. Michael's South, but generally across the island, what is the progress? I know that we started this work, which I think is very important work, to be able to allow persons in regular communities like Pinelands, Silver Hill, Gaw Hill, in my instance, Britton Hill and Bayland, to be able to have these opportunities. But my program has started and stopped, or been discussed and stopped. And so I want to know what the challenges with this program. I think it is too critical, really. I think this program is too critical toward the transformation of Barbados to not become one of our flagship programs. And so I would like you to give an update on that program, and if you're going to continue to see the rollout of that program during the coming year. Because if anyone who understands social policy, anyone who understands social planning, anyone who understands the dynamics of the challenges that we're facing at the community level would appreciate that we need to get these kind of on-the-ground community-based programs up and running. So I'm just trying to get an update on that program, and if you choose to be so kind here or afterward, an update for the one in St. Michael South.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I realize that you deliberately maybe omitted St. John in that, but it's okay. I will ask the director, yes, I know that your particular building blocks project was started because I did the site visit with you. And I will ask the Director of Youth Affairs to give you an update on the status of your particular project and the other blocks as well.
Thank you, Minister. Morning, Chair. I am Cleviston Hunt, Director of Youth Affairs in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment. And I want, first of all, to thank the Honourable Member for St. Michael South for giving that expansive outline of the role and the purpose of the Building Blocks project. And he is absolutely correct in that the project is really intended to bring economic enfranchisement to those young people who are residing on those blocks, some without hope of employment. And what we have done is to provide them with a means of actually earning an income, as a means also to reducing the situation for the risk factors for criminal behavior and deviance within those communities, and really to provide, the opportunity for those persons to make a living for themselves and their families. As the Minister pointed out, we have already completed 4 blocks, sites across the Ivy, Parkinson Field, Silver Hill in Christchurch, as well as at Bonnets. So those are 4 blocks that have already been completed, with 16 persons who have the opportunity to make the living coming out of the work that they're doing at these sites. The second phase of this project, which actually involved Jessamy Avenue, Sears Court, Bush Hall, and St. Stephen's Hill, are at various phases of, I don't want to use the word finishing because that's speaking very loosely. But the one which the Minister is asking at Jessamine Avenue, we have received the planning permission for that block. We had gone out to tender in order to be able to get a contractor to build. A contractor has been identified, and we are currently at a situation where now we are relooking the process that we went through in relation to the tender in order to proceed with the construction of that blocks. So I can assure the Minister that in short order, we will be in a situation where we can actually continue the progress of the block at Jessamine Avenue. In relation to Sears Court, we have put that out to public tender using the bonfire portal, and we are still awaiting the outcome of those deliberations in relation to the tender process. At the one in Bush Hall, we encountered a challenge where the site that was identified, there was a cave that was located on that site, which I think everyone is aware that the tree that was there would have collapsed the cave. And therefore, we are in a situation where we are now relooking, we are in discussions as to whether we need to find an alternative site or whether our architects will doing what is required for us to be able to continue at the site that was identified. At St. Stephen's Hill, we are still awaiting planning permission in relation to that, and therefore we cannot proceed. At least I can say that one of the challenges that we have had in actually rolling out the phase 2 had to do with the receiving planning permissions, as well as the cost of the blocks, having received the tender documents and having actually been out to get the quotations from the quantity surveyors. It is felt that the costs of these blocks are high, and therefore what we have been doing is to try to find cheaper alternatives in order to reduce the cost of delivering the blocks to the constituencies as well as to the persons that have been identified. Honourable Minister, I hope that answers your questions, but I will say to you, as I said, that we are still involved in the process of getting your blocks sorted out, and in very short order, I think we should be continuing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I spoke to the benefit of the program, but I think the minister needs to perhaps speak about the benefits of this particular program. I do think it is a very useful program. The hurt that I am experiencing is not because it's not being built in my community, but it's because when it's not built, it denies young people opportunity that I think that all Barbadian young persons deserve. So perhaps, Minister, if you care to share a bit about the building blocks, what it was intended to do, and so on, that would also be useful. That was my follow-up question, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Look, I agree with you entirely that this particular project, one that I inherited from one of my predecessors at the ministry, is one that, again, similar to several of the programs at the ministry, is about changing lives, is about providing an opportunity for persons to become self-employed. One of the things that we are doing is to partner these individuals who are occupying these particular facilities with the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme to provide leadership in terms of how they should treat the business or treat to business as it relates to whatever it is that they're doing within the kiosks that we are providing. So the fact that government can provide an opportunity where these structures are put in place based on what came from the individuals from in the locales is a clear example of what we're trying to do in terms of having an opportunity for persons to step to a different level. At the end of the day, we're hoping that maybe they can grow to the extent where they become employers. It is one of the projects, and you mentioned one of the signature projects inside of the ministry that is looking to change lives here on island. And Director would have mentioned the fact that one of the reasons why we would have had to pause at some point in time is because of the cost that was attached to the construction of these particular kiosks. And we're looking at different solutions. Maybe the container solution is one that we're looking at that can reduce the cost. We are partnering with other ministries to reduce the cost as it relates to the infrastructural work at these locations. So I agree with you that this is one of those projects that can impact at a social level. Part of my ministry is community empowerment, and it is also doing that because it is bringing commerce in some cases to communities where no commerce exists before that. So yes, I see the value, the absolute value in what we're doing in terms of the building blocks project.
Proceed. Chair, thank you, Honourable Member. My second question, Minister, is in relation to the community development centres. I hold the view that the community centres in Barbados are extremely important and that they should be used pretty much 24 hours, really. Persons should have access to community centres well into the evening. There should be a vibrancy among community groups utilizing these centers. There are a number of persons who are asking to use spaces in evenings to do different things. But that I just want to ask in relation to the community centers, what is the actual status? I mean, none of us in this room will be satisfied to know that these centers are closed down, but it seems to me, and this is purely just from looking, and I could be wrong, that a number of these community centers are closed in the evenings. And, you know, to me, when people come home from work is when a community center should be open. As a boy growing up in the Pine, I remember when the community center in Pinelands was so overbooked, you could hardly get in to use those community centers. And now a number of the centers seem to be closed. Now I know one may be tempted to respond, not yourself, but somebody, and say that the centers are open. From my viewing, a number of them are closed in the evening. It is the view of many persons who live in these communities that they're also, which is similar to mine, that these centers are closed in the evenings. And so I'm wondering what we are doing to make these centers of greater use. There is no doubt in my mind that the country would benefit significantly from having access to these centers. And if it is that we are saying that there are not enough community organizations, then what are we doing to be able to build back that kind of community momentum where persons naturally took care of the issues that arose within their own communities? I'd also like to know, Minister, what, in terms of the management of these centers and so on, what initiatives you have put in place to address some of these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Minister. Look, the truth is that my ministry is very proactive as it relates to things that are impacting our young people, things that are happening or impacting the community. You may have remembered that I took a paper to Cabinet seeking permission to start the center management committees. And we have started those committees at 4 locations as requested then. What we're looking to do now is to expand those center management committees to every single community center that is under community development for the simple reason that you identified. There is a need to have our community centers open way after the regular closing time at 4:30. So hence, we have put the center management committees in place. When I went to the ministry, one of the first things that I did was to ask every single youth officer to start one new community group within the district that they're responsible for. And we have that. Again, you mentioned occupying the community centers, and one of the things that we're looking to do is to have more satellite locations for a number of the programs that we're doing. For example, entrepreneurship is one of the things that we're looking to push among the ranks of the young people. And the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme would have just done a training of trainers program that will allow more facilitators to get into the communities to provide information for those youngsters who are looking at that as a viable option, to be able to have the skill sets that when they decide to start their own business, then they have a background or basic knowledge in terms of what I should do within the business sector. So in short order, you will see a number of programs coming to those community centers that you are now seeing close after hours. We're expanding our cultural program, our community cultural program, where we will return to having dance and drama and several other activities at community level, because we need to engage our young people. And we're cognizant of the fact that we need to provide structured activities in a structured environment to impact those youngsters at community level. I have asked on a couple of occasions to have study halls, not lessons, but study halls where those youngsters who have a number of siblings in the household that will distract them from studying, that they can come to the community center in a quiet environment and have an opportunity to prepare, if it's for the 11+, if it's for CXC, CAPE, whatever. So I am agreeing with you that those community centers that are closed, we have to reopen them after hours, and plans are in train from my ministry to ensure that we can do that and that we can expand the number of training opportunities for our young people at community level.
Thank you, Honourable Member. So more specifically, I hate to be parochial in these matters, but in St. Michael South in Bayville, we have a very small community center, perhaps one of the smallest in Barbados. I know there was a move at one point to move toward resource centers where they would have community access to internet and various things. So I'm hoping that at some point there will be some work done on that center. It is definitely too small. You know, I had a view that in a lot of the housing developments, these housing schemes, of which, I mean, I grew up in one, so I have a fond affection for them, but I felt like these support systems in community, in housing schemes were always too small, not enough playing fields. When there are playing fields, not enough lights on the playing fields. I won't ask you about that today, but you know, the status of the lights on the fields, but not enough playing fields, not enough community centers. The size is too small when you actually do have centers. And there has to be a point where you take a pause and look at these centers and ask, in relation to the capacity of persons who reside in these communities, are these facilities adequate? And the irony is that in constituencies that are densely populated, the community centers are underpopulated. It is a paradox that gives me difficulty to grasp. And so I'm thinking now in relation to the plans to make these centers, some of them a little bit bigger, and to offer programs that would be useful. And I'm keen to know if there are any plans to do such across the island. I know you've been doing some, but I want to know if there are plans to do any in the Bayville area specifically, because it's clear to me that what I have, and my center is probably one of the few centers that are heavily utilized, but it's clear that what I have is not adequate, sir. So I'm just asking now in relation to that. And then if you choose to, and this is not my question, sir, I just want to be very clear, if you do choose to talk about the lights and things that's on you, that's not my question.
Direction come from the chair, Honourable Member. Just be aware.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, you know, it seems as if we're constantly competing because I'm honored to believe that I have the smallest community center on island in Kendall, but now you're telling me about yours. But I know that community development, we're looking to see how best that we can improve the facilities at several locations that carry the name community centers. But I will ask Ms. Keat to probably expand in terms of what may be happening at your location. And as far as the lights are concerned, after Ms. Keat, I will ask Mr. Matthias to speak to the lights at your location, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Humphrey, in relation to your question about the Bayville facility, we know that facility is extremely small, but given the location where it is placed, we have some challenge because it used to be an old bath, and that is extremely small. The land mass is extremely small because even when we have activities there at the center, it is extremely difficult to even find a park. And we were grappling with how can we expand this facility, and we are still grappling with that. But what we've done, and you realize that the center would need some repairs, and what we've done, we've already secured the scope of works, and we are going to ensure that that facility, small as it may be, but it is, you know, treated to a level of maintenance where the patrons then they can go in and have activities. Currently we have an eyelash extension course there, as well as the soap making course. And to be honest with you, when I saw those participants there, eager to participate in the training, and never mind the density in which they had to actually, go into the center, but, certainly we are looking at it, and we are going to refurbish what we have in existence, but the landmass there is going to prove to be a bit challenging.
Nicholas, can you speak to the lights in the area for Minister?
Good morning, everyone, again. 28 out of the 37 facilities have been lit from the original project called the Lighting Project. That started in earnest in 2022, right? 28 of those are finished. 3 of them completed under the current Ministerial project that's going on, and we will complete the others as resources allow. Internally, we actually have started with your Bayland Community Center facility in terms of getting lighting on the internal scale on the existing fields. We are currently prepping Bleming, both A and B, and a few of the other fields that we have around the island to try to get those back in line for football, BFA, and BCA cricket that is coming up soon. We have recently finished Haynesville, persons known as Melbourne, and we are continuing to progress with those as resources allow.
Thank you, Honourable Member and your team. I appreciate that the lights in the Bayland community Bayville were done. I'm very thankful for that. I think perhaps there could be some expansion, not my third question, there could be some expansion though about that actual project that you are doing to light the fields and the Ministerial and so on. So my final question, I know the Minister spoke about the National Stadium. But I feel that the public needs some details. We would have seen a video circulating about the government misuse of a $40 million grant with a person who clearly doesn't understand how grants work, and asking where the money is gone and so on. I feel that we have, as a decent parliament, and surrounded by public servants with tremendous knowledge for whom I have the greatest respect, that we have to share the data and the information and the facts, as it speaks to where we are on the national, at the National Stadium. At the same time, sir, I have my senior games. This is a plug for myself. On May 5th to 20th, the finals will be the 18th, 19th, and 20th at the Usain Bolt Complex. And I know that they just put on a brand new track there too. Yeah, we're gonna break some records this year. A brand new track has been placed there. I think y'all might have had something to do with that as well. But to talk about, maybe you can talk about that too, but to talk about the stadium, and perhaps at the same time the mini stadium, but that could be a separate question. No, it's an expansive question, because Barbadians need to know about the state of the National Stadium, what our plans are, what this facility could look like, and in relation to the development of sports overall. And while I have been a true ardent football fan, I've been at the stadium from the time I was in my teens watching when Division I football, when Pinelands was in, when Notre Dame was in. So I know the stadium. The stadium didn't get old yesterday. The stadium has progressively gotten old. It is alarming to me that the sins of past governments have now all been heaped on the floor of this government, and to suggest that this government has not done anything about a stadium that has been in need of help and love and repair for a significant period of time. And I want to know what our plans are, because it's now fallen on us to make wrong things right. And don't get me wrong, we have to fix it. But I just want to know, sir, what are the plans in detail for the stadium, and perhaps if you wish to tell us a bit about the National Stadium and even what you did at Usain Bolt.
Minister, I'm not sure if you missed my initial mouthings, but I spoke to the stadium from the very beginning of this piece. I'm not sure if you were here.
I heard it, I just don't think you gave us the detail that the country needs. And so I want us to have a detailed conversation on the stadium, and to use the opportunity, if you don't want to talk about the stadium, to talk in more details truly about the mini stadia across Barbados, which areas are likely to get them, where the bleachers are, how many have received the lights, that kind of detail, because I think the public deserves that level of information.
Fine, not a problem. I would have mentioned, like I said before at the top, but I will ask Mr. Rowe. I'll ask Mr. Rowe to provide more information in terms of the details in relation to the stadium. But you are correct that the misinformation that was put out by individuals who, I don't know what they're seeking, but the $40 million that was mentioned, the Chinese are the ones who will be tasked with providing the contractors to demolish and construct the new stadium. The initial phase one of the stadium is seeking to do, or was seeking to put 10,000 seats on the existing footprint. That was now reduced to 8,000. One of the things, as I mentioned earlier, that the government is seeking to do is to have a phase 2 of the National Stadium where we can come and mirror what is happening on the existing footprint to the eastern side or the northern side of the stadium. Now, there's several small details I've mentioned at the jump as well that we have planning approval for the National Stadium. That is in place. What we're looking to do now is to get all of the costing for the pieces of, not equipment, the piping and this type of infrastructural work, that when phase 1 is completed, we do not have to go back and do any kind of excavation to put in pipes, that all of these things will be in place, ready for the phase 2 section of the stadium. But I'll ask Mr. Rowe to come in and share some information in relation to what is currently happening with the stadium.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, so with respect to where we are with the stadium, Minister explained that we were initially looking at a capacity of 10,000 seats in the western stand, but to ensure that those seats were properly spaced, that capacity was reduced to just over 8,000. Now, we continued the discussions with the Chinese design team, and they are in the process of increasing that number beyond the 8,000 to resort to 10,000 in the western.
Officer, you're going very well, but I hate to interrupt you, so that we will know who is speaking to us and from which.
Okay. Sorry,
position.
Mr. Chair. Stephen Rowe, Sports Development Officer in the Ministry. So we're looking at moving the capacity of the western stand back to 10,000. Minister would have mentioned that that is a part of phase 1. Phase 1 will entail having the western stand put in place, as well as the track and the field. Now, for phase 2, we're looking at having a similar stand on the eastern side, as well as a 400-meter warm-up track on the site of the current lumber company. At the original proposal for phase one, the Chinese team was looking at having a 200-meter warm-up track, which we considered to be inadequate. And so the decision to move towards a 400-meter warm-up track. As Minister explained, during phase one, we've already decided that we're going to have a phase two on the eastern side. There is going to be that need for connectivity between the two stands. And so, being seized of that information, we recognize that there will be a need to have trenches installed to facilitate the necessary pipes and conduits that run between the two stalls, run between the two stands, that will prevent having to disrupt the finished work once it is laid for phase one. So we're in the process of having those conversations with the Chinese team. The local engineers and architect, they've given us a detailed list of those enabling works to be included, which would be things like increasing the size of the electrical mains, the size of the transformers, as well as detailing what goes in the tracks and the trenches. Now, as far as connectivity is concerned, we're looking at having connectivity for the fire alarm system, the surveillance, access controls and security systems, the public address systems, because we would want to make sure that what the persons in the western stands are hearing, the persons in the eastern stands are hearing at the same time. Telecommunications, IT, computer networks, the audio-visual systems, as well as the building management systems. So all of those are things that we're trying to have, we're trying to make provisions for in phase one, so as to avoid the disruption of those finished services once we've completed phase one. As far as the 400-meter warm-up track is concerned, in order for the stadium to become accredited by the IAAF, there is going to be that need for a warm-up track. So notwithstanding the warm-up track that we're looking at, the 400-meter warm-up track will be part of phase two. That is going to be done concurrent to the works in phase one, because we want to ensure that once phase one has been completed, that we will have the track, the warm-up track, and we can have the facility accredited. I hope that sheds some light on the level of detail that the member has been requesting, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. In relation to your questions, Minister, about the ministerial project, I will ask Director Bascom to shed some light on that particular initiative.
Chair Emerson Bascom, Director of Sports Acting. The whole concept of the ministerial project was to provide an avenue where our young people can be involved in meaningful activities after outside it gets dark. The object is to prevent them from being involved in unwholesome activities such as crime. Currently, there are 13 facilities being constructed, excuse me. 5 of them, namely Briar Hall, Gull Hill, Greens, Friendship, are at the stage where we are just awaiting the installation of the bleachers. All the others are at various stages of completion. The project was stalled somewhat, Mr. Chair, in 2022 based on the amount of rain that we had in Barbados. I will mention that PPC in October that the NCC had indicated that they would finish their part of the project by the end of December. But two things stopped that from occurring, Mr. Chair. One was, again, the issue of rain. And the second thing was the usual stoppage of work by C.O. Williams in December. However, the work is still ongoing. Like I said, there are various stages. The bleachers, some of the bleachers are here. The NCC was able to get most of the soil that they needed to continue the work. And that's the position that we are at right now, Chair. I will give you, for the knowledge of the public, the names of the places where the stadium is being constructed, and there are Friendship, St. Michael, Gore Hill, St. John, St. Catherine, St. Philip, Briar Hall, Christ Church, Green, St. George, Parish Land, Christ Church, Bridgefield, St. Thomas, Heights Village, St. James, Mahika, St. Peter, St. Elizabeth in St. Joseph, Conrad in St. Andrew, and Chaka Hall, St. Lucie. I may add that is phase one. Obviously, when those 13 are completed, we will go to phase two, providing that we get the funds to continue the work, sir.
Thank you, Minister. I hope that the hearing of Chaka Hall last doesn't mean that it will be last, but I will get my turn when next we come back to Parliament, because I have questions too. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, we say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The Chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until Tuesday, the 12th of March at 9:30 a.m. Honourable Speaker, I would want to indicate to those who are listening, and certainly to the members of the Honourable Members team, we have to attend the funeral, the official funeral of former Commissioner of the Barbados Police Service, Mr. Grantley Watson, and honourable members, therefore, this afternoon will be attending that funeral. So we're therefore breaking the estimates and we'll come back to resume on Tuesday at 9:30 a.m.
The question is that this Honourable Chamber be suspended until Tuesday, the 12th day of March, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against it, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This Honourable Chamber stands suspended until Tuesday, the 12th day of March, 2024 at 9:30 a.m.